night air hung thick with mist, swirling between the towering pines like ghostly tendrils. The group of 5, Ethan, Maria, Jake, Olivia, and their tour guide, Victor, stepped cautiously along the narrow dirt path. Their flashlights cast weak beams that barely cut through the dense fog. Victor, a grizzled man with a lifetime of stories etched into the lines of his weathered face, stopped abruptly. "From here on out, you follow my lead. No straying from the path, no wandering. No matter what you hear, do not run." His voice was low, warning, carrying the weight of unspoken horrors. Ethan chuckled nervously. "You're really selling this place, man." Victor didn't smile. He merely adjusted his lantern and started forward again. The forest whispered around them, branches swayed, leaves rustled, but there was no wind. Olivia shivered and moved closer to Jake, who gripped her hand reassuringly. The tour had begun. They walked for nearly an hour, the silence stretching thin. Occasionally, Victor stopped and seemed to listen, as if the trees themselves were speaking to him. Maria, ever the skeptic, rolled her eyes. "Come on, what's the deal? Is this some elaborate prank? A haunted attraction?" Victor turned to her, his eyes reflecting something unreadable in the dim light. "You wanted a horror tour, didn't you?" Maria scoffed, but before she could reply, a shrill, distant cry echoed through the trees. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't human. The group froze. "Stick together," Victor whispered. The sound came again, closer this time, a rasping wail, like something crying out in agony. The trees loomed taller, their branches clawing at the sky. Shadows slithered between them, just out of sight. Ethan swallowed hard. "Tell me that's part of the experience." Victor shook his head. "Keep moving." They picked up their pace, but the path seemed longer than before. The landmarks Victor had pointed out earlier, an old tree with twisted roots, a peculiar boulder shaped like a skull, were missing. Or worse, they had changed. Maria glanced at her phone. No signal. The battery icon flickered and drained rapidly, despite being at 80% when they started. Then, Jake screamed. Olivia spun around. Jake? He was gone. Only the beam of his dropped flashlight remained, spinning in slow circles on the ground. The mist thickened, swallowing everything in a suffocating white veil. "No one moves!" Victor commanded. His face was grim, his hand gripping something in his coat. Was it a knife? A charm? Then, laughter. Hollow, broken, echoing through the trees. The laughter of a child, but warped, unnatural. Something rustled in the undergrowth. A shape darted past, just at the edge of vision. Victor cursed under his breath. "It knows we're here!" One by one, the group dwindled. Maria was next. She turned for a second, calling Jake's name, and in that blink of an eye, she was gone. No sound. No struggle. Just gone. Ethan's breathing was ragged. "This isn't real. This can't be real." "It's real," Victor muttered. "And it's watching." Something moved in the trees. A figure. It was Jake, or what looked like Jake. His head tilted at an unnatural angle, eyes void of recognition. His mouth opened, but no words came out, just the same distorted laughter from before. Olivia sobbed. "Jake, please." He lunged. Victor shoved her aside, raising his lantern. The flame inside flickered wildly, casting long, writhing shadows. The figure shrieked and dissolved into mist. "Run!" Victor bellowed. They ran. Branches tore at their skin. The air grew heavy. The ground seemed to pull at their feet. The forest blurred, the trees bending and twisting, as if the land itself had become something alive and malevolent. Ethan fell. Olivia screamed his name, but Victor grabbed her wrist. "He's gone. Keep running." She sobbed, but obeyed. The entrance to the forest appeared a hideout break in the trees, salvation within reach. But just before Olivia could cross, the darkness surged forward. It swallowed Victor first, his body yanked backward into the abyss. His scream was cut short. Olivia fell to her knees, gasping, crying. The mist curled around her, tendrils reaching. whispering. She turned back, just for a second, just to see a face. Her own face, staring back from the trees, eyes wide and empty, lips curled into a silent scream. The darkness claimed her. And then, there was nothing. The next morning, a search party found 5 sets of footprints leading into the forest, but none leading out. Days passed, and the missing group became a legend. Locals whispered about the cursed forest, how no one who entered after dark ever returned. Rumors spread of shadowy figures lurking at the tree line, watching. Then, one evening, a lone hiker stumbled out of the woods bloodied, delirious, whispering nonsense. He was barely alive, his body covered in deep scratches, his mind fractured. It was Ethan. He spoke of faces in the trees, of voices whispering secrets of the void. He ranted about the others, how they were still there, trapped in the mist, their souls clawing to escape. Then, he screamed a sound so guttural, so filled with terror, that the nurses in the hospital refused to go near him after dark. That night, he vanished from his hospital bed. All that remained was a single handprint on the window, smeared in something blacker than ink. And in the forest, the laughter began again. Over the years, new groups of thrill-seekers arrived, drawn by the legend of the forest tour. Some came armed with cameras, eager to capture proof of the unknown. Others carried weapons, convinced they could fight whatever lurked in the shadows. None of them were ever seen again. Locals reported hearing screams at night, followed by eerie silence. Some swore they saw shadowy figures moving just beyond the trees, their eyes glowing like embers in the dark. Occasionally, a lost soul would wander out of the forest disoriented, bloodied, forever changed. They never spoke of what they saw. They never stayed long. One stormy night, a team of paranormal investigators ventured into the woods, broadcasting a live stream to thousands of viewers. The feed showed their nervous laughter, their fearless bravado. Then, the screen flickered. Static. A glimpse of something moving behind them. A scream. The camera dropped, the lens capturing only a dark, shifting mass before the feed cut to black. The search party found their equipment. Their bodies were never recovered. And so the legend of the horror forest tour continued, an endless cycle of fear and darkness, feeding the whispers that carried on the wind, calling for the next victims to step beyond the trees.